As I'm writing this script, The Boys is under its third season on Amazon Prime, and we are officially 4 episodes in. To keep this section brief, I love the first season of The Boys. I think in the superhero movie landscape that we find ourselves in today, The Boys is a much needed breath of fresh air. I think that season 2 of the show is pretty good too. Don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as good as the first season, but not every sequel can beat Cars 2 now, can it? Despite whatever shortcomings season 2 has, I'm too invested at this point to stop watching. So no matter where this show goes, I'm afraid to say that I'm all in for it. And don't worry, I hear you typing. You're saying something along the lines of, you can just turn off the show if you feel like it's not up to your standards. Also, your standards are shit. Also, choke on a brick. And to that I say, thank you for the support, leave a like while you're at it. But so far, The Boys Season 3 is fine. It's fine. It's good. And for all I know, by the end, it could be great. But there's one episode coming up that has me pretty worried about the show, and that's episode 6, entitled Herogasm. In order to understand why this episode has me quaking in my boots harder than your mother at the sight of my beard, I need to explain The Boys comic book. Written by Garth Ennis, the comic book stretched from 2006 all the way until 2012, and it serves as a deconstruction of the superhero genre. This deconstruction happens in a multitude of different ways, including but not limited to blood, boobs, sexual violence, more boobs, a lot more blood, a lot more pee than you'd think, and let me check my notes again, more boobs and blood. The comic book is not very good. It has its fans, everything on the internet does, but the comic book is mean-spirited, and it reads more like a typical comic from the 90s where every character uses the excuse of being conflicted in order to justify why they just brutally murdered the local drug dealer. Spawn, I'm looking at you. But what is Herogasm in the comics? Well, the Mary Sue has a synopsis that does the material way better justice than I can ever give it. So, what is Herogasm? Well, in the Boys comics, it's basically a parody of the big comic book events where all the different heroes get together to save the world. In this case, instead of uniting to defeat evil, it's all of the heroes in the world getting together for a super orgy. Yep, you heard that right. A super orgy. Super orgy. Jesus wept. Forget about great power and great responsibility. Consider my perception of superheroes deconstructed. My biggest issue with Garth Ennis as an author is that, in concept, The Boys is a really interesting idea that can say new things about the comic book genre. Superheroes can work as morally complex people that toe the line between good and bad. We've seen it in books like The Watchmen. The issue with Garth Ennis is that he hates superheroes, and this hatred isn't something that he puts aside for the sake of a great story. Instead, he keeps pushing his hatred in your face, worse than that one drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. Yes, Uncle Bob, you are a true patriot. And I don't think I dislike this book just because of my love for superheroes and comic books. I dislike it because of how pretentious it comes off as. The Boys comic book is like someone desperate for attention, showing us their work and saying, "Look, I did a superhero thing." What, Garth? We all respond, "Look, it's the Flash, and he's doing a line of cocaine. Isn't that shocking social commentary?" Well, yeah, it's shocking in the same way that a shard is shocking, but shocking nonetheless. And the Herogasm comic arc is all of my issues with the book wrapped up into one big package of fuck you. The only saving grace is that the show is not afraid to deviate from the comics, and more often than not, the show deviates for the better. For example, the characters of Billy the Butcher and Homelander are drastically improved, with Billy going from a completely unlikable protagonist that makes the book pretty hard to come back to at certain points. Instead, they make him a tough love father type figure, first with Huey and then with Ryan in Season 3. So it does feel rewarding seeing Billy go from this stone-cold killer to a more sympathetic figure who realizes that despite losing Rebecca, he still has people in his life worth fighting for, because, you know, Garth, that's how character development works. And the changes made to Homelander is just amazing. Chef's kiss. Step aside, weebs. Attack on Titan doesn't come anywhere near this peak fiction. The Boys show managed to turn Homelander from a reprehensible evil Superman archetype to an emotionally complex character who is still irredeemable but struggles with his identity and wanting to be adored by the man. This is a side note, but I also appreciate the show's choice to switch the Black Noir twist from the end of the comics where, spoilers, he's revealed to be a clone of Homelander and Rebecca's real killer, which, yeah, the show's backstory for Black Noir isn't earth-shattering by any means, but at least it doesn't undermine the main motivation for the book in the name of subverting my expectations. But I think the most shocking part of all is that a quick look on Amazon reviews shows that Herogasm is pretty beloved by the fandom. One review calls the third volume of the book better than the first two, which, sure, I mean, drinking spoiled milk might be better than eating my own shit, but I don't think it's that much better. And another review praising the depravity of this story and how they use it to get the point across. Now, I don't need to invest millions into NFTs in order to show that I'm poor with my money and judgment, but I guess if it gets the point across, I'm okay, right? Again, this is a side note, but the art for Herogasm is particularly awful. This is rich coming from me because I couldn't draw if I had a bomb strapped to me, but then again, I don't claim to be an artist. But come on, John McCree, you know what human beings look like. Just do those instead of whatever it is you decided to do for this book. The Boys holds a special place in my heart. In a post-Daredevil world, superhero television has been inconsistent to say the least, whether it's the CW's cheap effects and soap opera level storytelling with the Arrowverse,
no touching without consent,
or Marvel's frustratingly formulaic stories on Disney+, every superhero show nowadays feels really derivative and basic. But The Boys is good. It's a show that has interesting commentary on the superhero genre and entertainment as a whole. And for all I know, Herogasm could be the best episode of the show. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm bracing myself just in case Amazon fully embraces one of the worst comic arcs I've ever read that prioritizes shock for the sake of shock and sacrifices character development for the sake of more blood, boobs, violence, sex, boobs, drugs, blood, and boobs.
I'm doing it! I'm doing it! Yeah! Yeah! In some of these, in some of these. Almost there, and done. Now let's see how it looks so far. The